all set, thank you.
All right, good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 5, 2022 meeting of the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission. I am Commissioner Ozzie Parenti.
Tamara Trantalis, Administrative Assistant.
Tom Tarenti.
Paul Kaplan.
Kevin Cornell.
Jack Demerjen, zoning administrator.
All right, good. We're going to be missing Commissioner Smith tonight. She has another prior engagement, so she won't be here. First item on our agenda is a review of the minutes from the June 21, 2022 meeting. I was not present for that meeting, so I'll have no comments. It's all right, it's all better now. I had a concussion on my finger.
You took enough abuse when you weren't here, don't worry.
That's why I purposely didn't watch the meeting. So anybody have any
I
comments?
had no comments. I'm surprised that it fit on 2 pages instead of 1.
Yeah.
Move that we approve the June 21st, 2022 meeting as submitted.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain. All right. Second item on our agenda is old business.
I have one item of old business. I'd like to offer my well wishes to the chairman on his birthday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Apparently, it is old business.
Yeah. I know, 39 years old.
Oh, yeah.
You upstaged me, Kevin. I was gonna introduce that under new business, but
I think he's got it right, though, Tom. Thank you very much. All right,
Happy
anything else
birthday,
under
Oz.
old business?
No.
All right, under new business, item number 3. Going to be another quick meeting, I think. All right. Item 4 is a report of the zoning enforcement officer, Jack.
Just like last week, we have a couple blight situations that I'm currently dealing with. You'll see some letters go out. Oh, sorry, Chris. You'll see some letters go out later this week and today. The only thing that I didn't get to address from last week was because both I was on vacation for a week and Vinny was as well, so we weren't able to meet up. I'm still gonna talk with him about what an event is at our winery location and kind of just get some details on that. But I haven't forgotten, and
And
that's...
while we're on that, to interrupt, I apologize.
No, that's it.
Kevin brought up a point, and I'm not sure, we usually just dump it onto the zoning enforcement officer. There was a percentage of, in order to call themselves a winery, they have to have a percentage of grapes that they actually create there, correct?
Yes,
Wine that they produce from grapes grown on the property.
Right.
right. It was, I think I might have sent
50%,
it out. It
something
was-
like that.
Yeah,
That-
Just curious, how do we enforce that, if at all, or how do we do it? Meaning you.
that's a good question. Quite honestly, this is really the first discussion I've had on it. I can't say I've had any complaints or that I've gone on site and, looked at every bottle of wine that they're selling and,
Is that how
asked
it's,
them.
just if you could talk to Vinny about how it's enforced, I've never, or if you.
Will
if
do,
Kev
yeah.
knows.
Yeah, it would be an enforcement question because how do we know what the harvest was, what the yield of those grapes was, and that they sold
How many?
X thousand bottles
How many
at
grapes do you need
750 milliliters.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like it's gonna be a viable, I mean, we'd love to run Jack in circles, but it doesn't feel like it's a viable enforcement issue.
Correct. It seems more that if it's, as long as they're only selling their label, is probably as good as you're gonna
Gonna
get.
get, right. And
The language says,
But it's doable, though. I mean, if there was some question on it. I mean, the enforcement is difficult. I'll grant you that, but you could do the calculation you're talking about.
You could do the calculations, but then are you going to ask someone to submit an accounting of their sale
Right.
I can't think of under what circumstances
Yeah,
you
right.
want that, but you
Right.
could. I mean,
I-
purpose of having that restriction, wasn't it to restrict the
This was-
size of it?
this was a little
No, no,
before
no,
I
I'm
got
looking at
here.
you, but I don't
think
mean
it
you.
was- Yeah, I think it
I'm
was.
looking at myself and Kevin and,
My recollection was that the purported reason it was approved is that basically it's the vineyard equivalent of a farm stand. And
Right.
therefore, they were selling their own products to the public.
Within reason, yes.
Within reason,
So it was also keep it in line in terms of size.
correct.
And
So at this juncture, if they're selling bottled wine that's their label, not,
Everybody
Kim
else's.
Crawford or, they're not, it's not an open liquor license, so to speak. It appears to be
Right.
their brand.
So maybe that's where you start
And
is their brand and see what they
Yeah.
have it there.
and
Okay.
it prevents more intensive retail use. I mean,
Yeah, and the only reason I'm even cross-questioning this is that it's a very popular place right now, and the parking is becoming an issue, use is becoming an issue. They seem to be good neighbors, but the intensity is becoming more than I had kind of envisioned.
And I think this section might also serve a purpose of limiting, the number of people, because there's only so much product you can grow on a 2-acre parcel. So instead of, 1,000 bottles of wine a month, they're physically, they can only sell, 500, whatever the number might be, but,
I think Kevin's
Perception was my recollection as well, is analogous to a farm stand, because we're dealing with a residential piece.
parcel,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
yeah. All right. Anything else, Jack?
That's it for me. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, then we can proceed right to our public hearing then. We have one this evening. Paul, you want to start by reading the legal notice for us?
Good. To appear one time on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, and one time on Thursday, June 30th, 2022, the Orange Town Plan Zoning Commission. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, July 5th, 2022, at 7 p.m. at the Orange Town Hall, 617 Orange Center Road, the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing on the following: an application for the temporary special use earth materials removal and filling application for certification of soil, erosion and sediment control measures, and site plan application for the property known as 37 Robinson Boulevard, submitted by 37 Robinson Boulevard LLC, to construct a 22,920 square foot addition to the rear of the existing building. An architectural standard supplement has also been submitted in conjunction with this application. Copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk. Additional information is on file in the Orange Zoning Department, dated in Orange, Connecticut, this 22nd day of June, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yep.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening and belated happy 4th of July.
Thank you.
So for the record, my name is Stephen Studer. I'm an attorney with Bircham Moses. Can you pick me up okay like this? Okay. With offices at 75 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut. And I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Light Sources Incorporated. So just for clarification, I'd like to just enumerate the fact that the applicant is here seeking site plan approval, also coastal management site plan approval, certification for soil and erosion and sedimentation control, in conjunction with the 22,920 square foot warehouse addition as was referenced in the legal ad that was just read, the legal notice rather, that was just read. And those matters don't require a public hearing. They're also seeking a special permit approval for the earthwork associated with the addition and the proposed site plan, which does require a public hearing. And it would appear that you're looking to really consolidate all of those into one item tonight, which even though there's a mix of public and non-public, and we have no problem with that.
Yeah,
but I just-
unless there's an objection.
no, none whatsoever, but I just wanted to just enumerate and clarify. In particular, because I didn't notice the CAM was not noticed in the, I'm sorry, I noticed that the CAM was not listed on the agenda or in the ad. So I don't think it's necessary, but just understand that is one of the items that we're going to ask you to take a look at. Thank you. Okay, so basically, Light Sources has an existing warehouse at 70 Cascade Boulevard in Milford. It's losing its lease next February due to the new owner, which is a brewery you probably all have read about in the newspaper. and as a result has decided to consolidate its Milford operations, which employs 2 people, and some warehouse space, and bring it to its Orange facility, which was built sometime around 1985. Therefore, time is short, which is why we're applying to both the zoning and the wetlands agencies concurrently. And as you know, by statute, this agency can't act until the wetlands agency sends you a copy of its decision. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to ask you, we want to ask you for an approval tonight, but we don't expect you to be able to act upon our request tonight. But we are before wetlands next week, and hopefully we will have a wetlands decision before your next meeting in August. So the property on Robinson Boulevard is 10.31 acres. The property is located in the Light Industrial 2 zone. The proposed warehouse space is for storage of materials manufactured on-site prior to sale and is therefore a permitted use as of right in that district. The property, as I mentioned, is situated in the coastal management zone due to its proximity to the Oyster River, and therefore a CAM site plan has been filed. As you can see, there's no sensitive coastal resources on or off-site, which this proposal will affect. The site itself and the surrounding area, much of which is zoned industrial as well, are defined as shorelands, which by definition are away from coastal hazard areas and have a, quote, high degree of development and redevelopment potential under the law, unquote. There are several small areas, both on-site and off-site, which consist of inland wetlands, and those will not be adversely impacted by the proposal. We are seeking inland wetland approval for the proposed warehouse expansion because it involves work within the upland review area of those wetlands. However, no wetlands themselves will be directly impacted. We believe the nearby wetlands, in fact, will benefit from the additional stormwater quality enhancements which are part of this proposal and which you'll hear more about shortly from our engineer, Bob Weway. The proposal meets all relevant standards for site plan approval like parking, landscaping, setback, lot coverage, and so forth. And the proposed warehouse itself is a pre-engineered metal structure, and it's going to be located on a portion of the site which is already existing impervious surface. So there's no additional impervious surface development to the rear of the site. There will be a little bit of site disturbance up on the front end because we're relocating some parking from the rear to the front of the property. So having said that, by way of just a brief introduction to the proposal, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Bob Weway. He's a professional engineer with Cotis Bodie & Associates, and ask him to run through the proposal with you in a little bit more detail. And I also would mention that Steve Andax, who is the facilities manager for Light Sources, is also here, and although he's not going to be making an affirmative presentation, he is certainly available for any questions you might have.
Okay,
So,
good.
thank you.
Bob, you could put it up on the, yeah.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bob Weway. I'm a licensed professional engineer and principal with the firm of Cotis Bodie & Associates with offices located at 263 Boston Post Road in Orange, Connecticut. We're here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Light Sources, Inc. And as Mr. Studer has pointed out, what we have up on the board right now is our site plan, sheet SP1. And what we've done is we've kind of highlighted the proposed development areas. So the area that's shaded in brown, that represents the proposed addition, approximately 22,920 square feet in size, along with the parking area that's proposed to be redone, as well as the parking expansion in the front portion of the property. That'll be adjacent to the existing parking with an additional curb cut going out to Robinson Boulevard. We've also depicted the inland wetlands that are located on the site. So in the front portion of the property, we have these 2 wetland systems here, which are also stormwater management basins that were incorporated as part of the original development of the property. An additional stormwater management basin is located on the south portion of the property, It'll be just adjacent to the proposed addition. And that basin basically receives runoff right now from the existing parking area, as well as a portion of the roof area from the existing building and through that area. There are some other pocket inland wetlands. This one's located about in the middle south portion of the site. It's an isolated pocket of wetlands, as well as a wetland system that's both on and off site along the southeastern portion of the property. And there's an existing water feature that's located off site just to the east of the property. And basically, all the runoff from this portion of the property as well as the front all collects and is collected down through this eastern portion of the system, where it then goes off-site and then gets down into the Oyster River as part of that system. So we're basically bounded to the north by Robinson Boulevard. The entire northern boundary is street frontage along Robinson Boulevard. And then we have industrial properties, numbers 53 and 53 through 57 and 70 Robinson Boulevard, down to the east of us. So this piece right here is 53 through 57, and then the back portion is number 70 Robinson Boulevard. And then up to the west of the property, we're also bounded by several industrial and commercial properties with frontages both on Robinson Boulevard and Con Air. And then down to the south, which is also the City of Milford / Town of Orange town line. Everything in Milford down along our southerly property line is all residential and neighborhood, with these properties all backing up to Wendy Road. And the site is going to be, well, it is presently served and will continue to be served by all major utilities consisting of public water, sanitary sewer, natural gas, electric, and CATV services. As part of the proposal that's going to be coming in, there's no proposed additional work for utility services. Everything is internal to the building. The sanitary line is already placed on the property. So basically, they'll just be, this is going to basically be a warehouse facility, so there's not going to be a whole lot of utility requirements that come in for, say, high electrical loading or anything like that comes down through here. So they'll be making all their connections internal to the site. There won't be any additional external utility hookup requirements.
Bob, could you explain the issue that I thought I read in your application regarding an adjoining owner as far as drainage is concerned?
I'm going to be getting in a little bit more detail with the storm drainage as we go through. So what I've put up here is this is basically an aerial photo from 2019 imagery. And the scale on this is 1 inch equals 100, so it kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of how our particular site is situated with respect to our neighbors, both to the north, east, west, and south. So as we mentioned, we've got the industrial properties to the west of us, industrial properties to the west, industrial to the east, with some commercial located in Milford. Part of that commercial is also located in Orange with the parking. And then down to our south, you can see that we have the residential development coming in from Wendy Road, and that's all located in the city of Milford. Likewise, as we were pointing out before, all of our drainage basically comes down, will tie into this wetland system off to the east of us, or our stormwater basin here, which will all collect through this system here, and then eventually discharges into the Oyster River system, which originates up in West Haven, a little bit flows into Orange, and then ultimately it flows through Milford and then connects up with Long Island Sound a few miles down the line with that.
Bob, is there any reason you can't retain that stormwater on site?
Well, we are.
I thought you just said you were draining into the Oyster River.
That's where the drainage patterns go. That's where the water goes presently today, and that's where it's going to continue to go as it goes. So another prominent note with respect to traffic, what we can see is basically any traffic that's going to be entering or leaving the site will come in through Robinson Boulevard. Right now, there's a separate truck access which borders the westerly property line, and that will continue to function after the development also. So the traffic that's leaving the site will basically utilize Robinson Boulevard, connect up with Con Air Road, and then make the connection to Marsh Hill Road. I would say, the truck traffic, probably 95 to 98% of the truck traffic is going to be making a right-hand turn out of that and connecting up with the I-95 corridor a little bit further up on Marsh Hill Road. So the traffic patterns are basically going to remain the same with this development. Their Light Source's other facility, their warehouse is right about in this location here. It's just off the map on Cascade Boulevard. So what happens right now is they will get deliveries at that particular warehouse, and then they'll separate those deliveries out, and then they'll have internal deliveries that go back and forth from site to site. So in essence, we can make the argument that the truck traffic will be less with the proposed plan, just for the simple reason that it's going to be one time in, one time out, instead of being delivered and then intermittent deliveries back and forth from the two locations. Just like to get back to the site plan for 1 minute and just go over the parking layout. So right now, we have the existing parking that's being utilized. The majority of the employees' parking is up in the front. There's visitor spaces also up in the front, and then additional employee parking in the rear, and that kind of shows up on the existing aerial. So what you can see is that this back area is loaded up with parking for employees all up and through this area. And then there's dedicated loading docks in this location and also down at the far eastern corner of the property. So with the proposed addition, the addition is going to basically occupy that larger area there. And that's going to necessitate the relocation of the parking up to the front. So this is the same aerial photo with our improvements overlaid on top. Again, the beige area represents the proposed building footprint, and the area in gray represents the parking repavement, if you would, and regrading that's going to take place as part of the project, as well as this overlay shows where that proposed parking is going to be in relationship to the rest of it, and how everything is going to interconnect between the two. So with our parking, we are actually decreasing the number of parking spaces by 10 from what's out there today to what's being proposed with the plans that are before the commission.
So the 168 is the final number that you're going to have?
The 168, yep. That's what's going to be proposed, and the way that we arrived at that number was utilizing the parking space requirement that was in place when the project was originally approved in 1985. So what we did is we applied that parking requirement standard to the existing built building. And so that was applicable to 1985. For the proposed addition, we're applying the current standards that exist today, which I believe is 2 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And again, we took a conservative approach on calculating the parking for the proposed. Okay, under the way that the plans are coming in with the warehouse use, that would actually generate the need for 14 parking spaces. 12 of those would be based upon the number of loading spaces. We have 4 loading docks. So I believe your requirement is 3 spaces per dock. That equates to 12, and then we were allocating about 400 square feet of office space internal to the addition. And again, under your parking requirements, that would generate an additional 2. So that brings the number much lower. We took, as part of our analysis, we took a little bit more conservative approach and said, okay, well, let's take a look and see if we're going to use this as manufacturing area. And we applied the 2 spaces per 1,000 on that, and we arrived at the 168.
Excuse me for 1 second, Bob. Is that the appropriate methodology of calculation, is the 1985 standard for the existing?
Excuse me, I went over it with Vinny because I had the same question, and he agreed with the way that they calculated this parking. The original building was just so overparked that they ended up having so much extra room.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're a couple spaces over what we required under that analysis. So it's our opinion that we fully comply with the zoning regulations with respect to the parking requirements. Bounce back to that. All right, so with respect to the stormwater management and the drainage, right now the site contains approximately 5.7 acres of impervious coverage consisting of the rooftop areas and parking areas that are on site. And that's going to be increased to approximately 6 acres, and the difference between the two is basically 10,200 square feet of proposed parking up in the front. There are, well, the entire site is all part of the South Central Shoreline watershed, okay? And that basically encompasses a larger area, including the Oyster River and going down. For the purpose of our analysis, we kind of micromanaged it and broke the areas out because we do have 2 separate drainage systems in the front. We have one in the front and one in the rear. And with the way that the site lays out, both topographically and the way that we've been able to determine where the roof drainage goes, we have a drainage divide which is pretty much in the middle of the property. And you can see on this particular drawing here, we have the break in the roof line. So that's also a drainage divide with respect to the roof drainage. So basically, everything from this point forward all drains to the north. Everything from this line here drains to the south. Everything to the south would be collected through the roof drain system, which goes underground and then ties into a catch basin system that exists out there today. Likewise, the runoff from the existing access drive and the pavement and parking area back here is collected through a number of catch basins, with the catch basins ultimately discharging into this man-made detention basin when the project was originally constructed and built.
Just to make sure I understand, Tom raised the issue before of the stormwater is collected on site and remains on site. You said it drains,
Well, it's collected on site and then discharged off-site.
Okay.
Now, we also have quite a bit of off-site drainage that flows onto us. So topographically, everything from the east side of Con Air Road kind of flows in that southeasterly direction, and everything up and through here flows onto our property. So what happens with the back of this piece here, if you ever go out there during a rainstorm, you'll see that this comes down. These slopes get very, very steep, and that water just comes down over the slope, it flows over the retaining wall, and then drains and ponds onto the parking. And part of the improvements that we're looking to do is improve through regrading of this to provide better drainage, because right now what happens is this parking or this truck access is so flat up in that area. The water, over the years the pavement's settled and the water just tends to collect, and in the wintertime it freezes and you go through the freeze-thaw cycles, and just creates a lot of havoc on the pavement system. So we also have some other off-site flow that comes down to us basically in the southwest corner. This does not flow onto our pavement. This kind of flows down along this corridor and then collects back up into the basin. And one of the things that we noted in talking with Steve from Light Sources, and then his conversations with a couple of neighbors on Wendy Road, was that when they have heavy rainfall events, they do have a tendency of getting water into their backyards that come down in through here. This particular site on here has a built-in swimming pool, and they've actually probably encroached onto Light Source's property with some fencing and some fill. But with that being said, the drainage does kind of come down through the back here, it'll collect in the backyards, and then eventually comes back onto Light Source's property. Now, there's nothing that we're doing as part of our proposal, or nothing that exists out there right now today in terms of the developed portion of the Light Source property that is creating this problem that's over here. This is all emanating from the off-site areas, as well as the topography that's in the non-developed area of the property. So as part of our stormwater management plan, we basically are tackling two different items here. We're dealing with the water quality volume, water quality flow rates, and then also control of runoff volumes and peak rates of runoff. Now, for the southern portion of the property, again, because we're not changing the impervious area within this sub-watershed, so there will not be any change in the peak rates or volumes of runoff from this portion of the watershed, because we're basically not changing the impervious coverages that are in that section. So what we are doing in here, because we do have the new pavement and new roof area that's going in through there, we are proposing to put in a hydrodynamic separator, which will address the water quality volume aspect of the of DEEP's stormwater quality manual and best management practices. So the hydrodynamic separator will basically be picking up all the new drainage that we're putting into the paved area, as well as the roof drainage from the proposed addition, which will discharge to the water quality structure, and then it'll be piped down to the existing detention basin in a very similar manner to the way that it exists today.
Is that the WQS1?
WQS1 on the grading plan, yes.
All right, so that's going to capture all of the impervious areas on the southern portion, but
Right.
the unimproved areas which that ponding is probably what created that pocket wetland that looks like a diamond in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, the soil conditions are gonna dictate the wetlands too, because
Yeah.
wetlands are defined by the soils types that are out there, but that is a fairly flat and undulating area, so you've got those little pockets and rills in there. And that's why even when you get down into this section here, again, we're talking about this wetland pocket here, and the neighbor that's having the problem with the backyard is right about in this proximity here. So what happens is some of the drainage that comes off of here, as well as the overland flow, kind of meanders and goes in a couple different directions depending upon how severe the rainfall event is. So some of it will creep onto his property, collect there, sit there, and if the drainage gets too high, it will flow back onto our property. Now, this neighbor, you can see with the fencing, has created a little bit of a berm, if you would, because when he filled in here, he actually blocked some of the natural drainage patterns. So I would say prior to the pool going in, a lot of this drainage probably flowed right down through the back of here and then tied into this wetland system. I don't know when that pool was built or put in, but it is there, and that's something that we're going to plan to deal with.
So because we're not changing it for good or the better.
Right, and that could be our basic argument, is that we don't need to do anything over here because we're not changing any of the conditions in that area. But in concert with Steve and the neighbor, and Light Source wants to try to be a good neighbor, you'll see on the grading plan that we have incorporated a small berm to try to help deflect some of that runoff from getting onto his property and redirecting it back towards us. That should be on your grading plan, which should be sheet number 2, I believe. So that, we did submit that with our application to wetlands, because that is going to be within their review area. we will need to discuss the inclusion of that berm with them and see if that's going to be an acceptable measure that they would be willing to approve to help the neighbor in that particular area. So then, likewise, for the rest of our stormwater management system is going to be up in the north end of the property. So right now, all the pavement is basically being collected in these two stormwater management basins. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we're going to leave well enough alone, and we're going to let these areas all continue to drain to those two stormwater basins as they presently are today. What we will be doing, though, however, is dealing with the proposed parking expansions, about 10,200 square feet in size. And we've done the calculations, and we've provided a design for underground detention or gallery storage. I believe we've got 36 4x8 by 2 foot high galleries that are being proposed. And again, those are depicted on the grading plan. So they'll be collected, the runoff from this portion of the parking will be collected through catch basin down near the intersection with Robinson Boulevard, will be collected and then discharged to the galleries. And then the overflow from that gallery system will be tied into the drainage system located on Robinson Boulevard.
So, Bob, on the southerly half of the building, could you just explain to me what the rationale is for using that existing detention basin?
It's there, and it was part of
Right, but is
the
it
original development.
But is it conforming?
Is it?
Or are you saying you're not increasing runoff?
Yeah, we're not increasing the runoff, so again, we didn't do a lot of detailed analysis on it, just for that simple reason that we're not changing anything there, so it really didn't warrant or dictate the need of getting into, was it properly sized, or what type of capacity it has and everything else. It's been there, it's been functioning, from what we understand, there haven't been any drainage issues or backups through that area in talking with Steve. So the water's there, it comes in through the system, it goes out through the system.
So you're basically using for volume, for detention and volume, they're using the existing, and then they're adding for quality, a water
Yeah, the
quality structure
hydrodynamics
upstream
separator.
Okay.
of
Yeah.
that. So they're upping the quality and utilizing the existing volume of detention.
Okay.
Forgive me, I'm a lowly
No,
structural guy.
that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine, that's fine.
Question, sir. If the southerly water quality would be upgraded with the structure into the existing, pipe system, would the northerly parking area that's cascades through those two stormwater basins and then off the site benefit from something similar?
There would be, again, under Deep's water quality manual, because we're not doing any improvement to it, it wouldn't be a requirement to put a hydrodynamic separator or to treat the water quality volume, so to speak. I guess the short answer is it probably would help. But again, there's no necessity to doing that under Deep's current set of requirements.
Which is why you segregated the new impervious
Correct.
system from the existing. And
Yeah, so we
so-
basically dealt with the improvements that we're proposing for that particular portion of the watershed. Okay, landscape plan, again, I think in the context of your regulations, we're not required to do anything with landscaping because our parking counts are actually going down. But with that being said, we did incorporate a landscape plan that included a number of plantings for the parking up in the front. We've got a number of shade trees as well as ground plantings. And likewise, in the back, we've got a number of trees that are being proposed to be planted up along the southerly border, as well as some ground plantings up and through that area too. And I think the last item with respect to the drainage, again, it'll show up on your grading plan.
Oh, I thought this was, yeah, great, okay.
Yeah, now we are gonna be doing some regrading in the parking area up in here. Again, that's basically to get more positive slope on the parking area to drain from point A to point B. So up and through here, we'll basically be meeting existing grade and then running a 1% slope to get down to the low point. But by the time we get down to here, we're cutting the grade about 1.5 to 2 feet. Now, with that being said, what we're also doing is we're also trying to intercept a lot of the off-site drains that's coming onto us and redirect it in back of the wall. So what we're going to be doing is putting in a drainage swale that comes down through, that's just upgrading of that retaining wall, and that's going to basically redirect the flow down to the existing detention basin, if you would. So right now, a lot of this flow is coming over the wall, getting onto the parking and pavement, getting collected in the catch basins, and then being discharged. So we're just taking a little bit more of a outside route, if you would, and not putting it into our drain system. So it'll just be a drain swale that comes down through that portion of the property. And the drain swale will provide some additional positive benefits of flowing through a vegetated area instead of just having it get down onto the pavement and flow into our pipe system that gets down through that section there. So, you know, the disturbance with this berm, again, the berm we're anticipating to be about 1 foot high. We're not anticipating cutting down any significant trees in that area. The berm can be set up such that we'll have it meander around any large trees. Most of what's out there are what I would consider to be saplings. So they're probably in the 2 to 4 inch size right now. So we should be able to do, if the Wetlands Commission is on board with redirecting some of this runoff, we should be able to do this with minimal intrusion into that buffer area. It gets down through that section.
Is any of this going to help that, you mentioned one homeowner who encroached onto your property a little bit with their own, I guess, berms?
Yeah, that would be this property here, which I think is number 95 Wendy Road.
Right.
So he's got the fence, and then there's some fill up and through here. So we're taking this berm and actually routing it down on the outside of his fence. So if you take a look at it, this would be the basic flow path that comes down through here. So we'd be taking it through the swale, and then this swale hooks up with the existing swale, and that carries it off-site and gets into the Oyster, would take it to the Oyster River. So again, this drainage that's along the south end here does not get into that detention basin. It kind of skirts it. You can see the swale that's right up and through here.
Is that going to affect negatively his property number 95, I think you said?
No, no, it really shouldn't, because we're carrying this berm around here, so this swale is going to come through here.
Underneath his property?
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is he's under no compulsion to do anything, but
Right.
what they do plan to do will probably be beneficial
Yeah.
to the adjoining owner.
Right.
Okay. All right, so I think that's a quick summary of what the site plan is. Again, you guys have kind of been hitting us with questions as we've gone, so if there's any additional questions the commission may have.
I have one question, Bob, before you, please stop.
Steve, come up to the,
Come up there?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
so they can get you on the.
Don't go away. So my two questions for Mr. Weiwei are, in looking at your drainage report, it does appear that there is some slight diminution in terms of the peak rate of runoff as well as the total volumes of runoff. And also, wouldn't that gallery that you're putting underneath the new parking in the front of the site, wouldn't that provide some stormwater quality enhancements as well?
Yeah, so I'll just hit on that a little bit further with regards to the calculations. And I think this should be part of your stormwater management summary that was submitted as part of the application. So if you take a look at the back page of that, what you'll notice is that for all the storms that we analyzed with the 2 through 100 year storm, The peak rates of runoff, they are diminished. I would consider them to be comparable to one another, but, number-wise, they are smaller. And likewise, with the volume of runoff, our volumes of runoff are actually less too. And that's primarily because of the gallery storage that we provided up in the front parking area. So, the galleries have the ability to collect the stormwater runoff. It'll treat it. It'll infiltrate the stormwater back into the ground. We've done all the necessary field testing to document and demonstrate that we have sufficient infiltration capacity for those galleries to function properly and to provide a benefit with regards to the water quality.
Okay.
Mr. Weiwei, we've been asking applicants to show, the tractor trailer movements, in just to make sure people can get in and out. Obviously, this building has operated, although I would not have wanted to park a tractor trailer back there in the past. But it appears that someone's gonna have to drive in, nose up towards the building, and then K back into these 4 spaces,
Yes.
which are going to be, which are all tailboard loading. So we're talking, reasonably sized trucks. It looks like on your SP4, you're sort of spotted a couple of vehicles. Is that what you were trying to communicate to us?
Yeah, I think, Jeff, on the site plan, I think on your SP4, you do have some trucks on there. That's not the full truck movement pattern.
Yeah.
I actually have a vehicle maneuvering program, and we've ran that, and it does work. That's why when you look at this configuration, as weird as that thing looks, that's what we needed to be able to get the trucks to come in and to do their maneuvers.
Well, judging from the photographs, you have to train people not to park their personal vehicles back there. And
Well,
then
there-
you'll have an open space to
Yeah,
do
well,
it.
there is, again, for anything that's in here, there is no employee parking. The employee parking is limited to that strip, and that's not gonna interfere with any of the truck movement at all.
Yeah, so, since you have a program, even if it's on an 8x12 sheet, is that something you could get together by the
If you want
next
the
meeting?
movie, I could give you the movie.
That's a great sales technique, but I'm kind of a stationary person. But, I'll watch the movie,
Yeah.
the little extra popcorn.
Yeah, we could
you
certainly
can
provide
provide
that, yeah.
Will there be signage directing the employees not to park? Or directing, huh?
There's a couple of spaces.
Yeah, there's a bank of spaces through
Oh, all right.
here.
Right,
But again, the bulk of the parking is all up front.
yeah.
So, obviously, if an employee decides to park over here,
They'll only
Steve
do
will
it-
be running out as soon as that
They'll
first
only do
truck
it
comes in.
once.
They'll only do it once.
Right, all right. Okay. Any other questions? I see no other people beside the applicant in the audience, so we won't ask for questions from the audience. All right. Steve, did you want to add anything else, or are you set for now?
I had the usual lawyerly arguments, Mr. Chairman. I had a few minutes of the usual summary, and then lawyerly arguments as to why this satisfies your regulations and what the case law says about essentially if we do satisfy the site plan and special permit regulations, then you really should be approving it. And, but I don't think I need to go through that with this group because you guys are pretty sophisticated and
Plus, you'll
you
have
know all
another
that.
opportunity.
Well, I guess I will. Which actually leads me to the last part of it, and that is, do we keep the public hearing
Yeah,
open?
that's what I think we do. Do we
Okay.
have any other department head sign-offs?
We have all the department heads.
We have them all.
We do.
Police, fire?
Not wetlands, because.
Other than wetlands.
But yes, everyone else is signed off, yeah.
Okay, so then, yeah, I mean, we can't act, as you pointed out.
Right.
Until wetlands gives their go-ahead,
Their referral, yep.
yeah.
So might as well leave it
All
open.
right, so we'll leave the public hearing open. If anything comes up, then we are in a position to
I'll double check the dates too, but this is our only meeting this month. Our next meeting is August 2nd, so we would be within our time frame. If for some reason we were to not come to a decision on the 2nd, we would just, have an extension, but again, no reason to assume that at this point.
But I'm sensing that the commissioners have nothing glaring at this point.
Well, your luck's out because I'm going to be on a cruise.
All right, I think that'll do it then.
Okay, all right. We do have an appointment with Wetlands, as Jack knows, next week. Is
Week
it
from
Monday or
today.
Tuesday? Okay, so next Tuesday. We're hoping that we can get through them in the one visit. And if that's the case, then we should be back before you with a wetlands report and the ability to wrap everything up your first meeting in August. That's at least
Yeah.
our expectation and our game plan.
All right, that's fine. So we'll keep the public hearing open and leave it at that for tonight.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Have a
you.
good evening.
All right. So happens that concludes our agenda.
Move to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Second, Commissioner Cornell, all those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. 7:52.
Judy, man,